Devastating fall of a dying millionaire at his ex-wife's door. Will she be his only hope? The clock ticked mercilessly in the dead of night, echoing through the empty streets as the storm clouds rolled in, dark and angry. A piercing scream shattered the silence, cutting through the humid air like a knife. It was a sound laced with panic and dread that sent shivers racing down spines. In the heart of the city, a figure stumbled towards a grand but fading mansion, the kind of place that whispered secrets of wealth and heartache. $1 million legacy now teetered on the edge of collapse, hanging by a thread just like its once revered owner, Harold Thorne. He was 15 minutes away from losing everything, and the end was closing in fast. Harold had been the epitome of power, cloaked in tailored suits and arrogance. But tonight, he was just a dying man, gaunt and pale, shuffling towards the only oasis in his storm, the door of his ex-wife, Evelyn. Clenching his fists, he fought for every breath, desperate for a whiff of the past, of warmth, of life. The heavy raindrops began to plummet around him as he reached for the doorknob, his slick hands trembling with uncertainty, every heartbeat booming in his ears like a drum signaling his impending doom. Onlookers from behind the wooden gates watched, their murmurs swirling with disbelief. "Can you believe it?" one whispered, eyes wide as plates. "He has really come to her after everything." Evelyn's heart raced as she peered through the window, her breath hitching at the sight of Harold's frail figure swaying unsteadily. The man she once loved now looked more like a ghost than the tycoon he had been. This was madness. Did he really believe that she could save him? There was more to this than met the eye, a dark secret binding them both as tightly as the rain-soaked ropes around his shivering body. As she hesitated, the door creaked open, but before words could escape her lips, Harold collapsed, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. A shuffle of feet, the rapid whispering of the crowd surged, shock mingled with anticipation. "Is he dead?" someone gasped. The tension was palpable. It gripped every chest tightly, every word caught in throats. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Evelyn's heart pounded as she knelt beside him, the reality of his condition crashing down like the rain. She fumbled with her phone, hands shaking, fighting against a wave of emotion that threatened to drown her. Sirens howled in the distance, a chorus of chaos that swelled around them. But just as she was about to call for help, Harold's eyes flickered open, water-logged and desperate, yet holding a haunting plea she had once known all too well. "Evie," he whispered, his voice a cracked whisper against the storm, "I need your help." It wasn't just a request. It felt like a lifeline thrown into the wild, turbulent waters of their shared past. As confusion washed over her, questions hung heavy in the air. What was he hiding? Was this truly about survival? And could she be the one to face the darkness looming over them both? The tension crackled. Every second felt like an eternity, as the mysteries of their fated love danced hauntingly around them, begging to be solved. Evelyn felt the weight of the storm pressing down on her, its cold breath seeping into her bones. Harold's frail frame lay sprawled before her, a chilling reminder of the man who had once ruled the city with an iron fist. The crowd murmured, the drumming of the rain punctuating their anxious whispers. Why had he come here? Why now, when everything was supposed to be over? Evelyn, his voice was barely a whisper, laced with desperation. "Trust me. I wouldn't he come if I didn't he need you. Trust." That word felt like a dagger twisted in her heart. The years bled away as she remembered the bitter fights, the betrayals that had paved the path to their divorce. Yet here he was, a shell of his former self begging for help. "No!" She fought back the tide of sympathy, shaking her head. "You can't just waltz back into my life like this, Harold. You don't get to pull me back in with your charm and your..." His hand shot out, grasping her wrist tightly, desperation radiating from his sunken cheeks. I need to explain. Just give me a moment." Through gritted teeth, she felt a rush of anger intertwined with concern. The sirens wailed louder, drawing closer with every passing second. She knew there was no escaping the truth now. They both faced an approaching storm, louder than the one raging around them. "Say it then!" Her voice cracked, echoing among the shadows. "Say what you came here for!" He took a shuddering breath, eyes darting towards the crowd, as if the onlookers could decode his every thought. "I'm in danger, Evelyn. People want me dead." Panic swirled in his eyes, growing larger than the storm, feeding into her fears. "It's about the trust fund and what I found. I can't explain it all now, but if I don't get your help, stop." She recoiled, pulling her wrist free, the touch igniting memories best left buried. "You can't expect me to just believe you." But that plea, that old spark of connection, ignited a flickering flame of doubt in her certainty. Harold had never been a man to fake vulnerability. Maybe he was telling the truth. The sirens blared as they finally turned the corner, blue lights flashing ominously through the downpour. Panic shot through her. What would happen if the authorities arrived and found him here, crumpled on her doorstep? Would they brand her an accomplice simply for being associated with him? "Help me stand," he gasped, trying to muster his strength. She hesitated, but the instinct to help fought its way to the forefront, drowning out her anger. "Okay, but no tricks." She maneuvered to wrap an arm around his waist, feeling how frail he had become. He leaned heavily on her, breath mingling with the rain-soaked air. As they stumbled inside, she caught a glance at the crowd, eyes filled with a mixture of intrigue and disapproval. Those same eyes that had once idolized Harold were now rooted in judgment. The door creaked shut behind them, sealing away the storm as she turned to face him. "Now tell me everything. And if you leave out a single detail, I swear I won't," he promised, his voice steadying. But as he prepared to speak, a sudden crash echoed from the dark outskirts of the dense storm, followed by a figure emerging, silhouetted against the shrieking winds outside. What the hell was that? Evelyn's heart raced, every instinct screaming that they were no longer alone. The night just became darker, and the secrets lurking in Harold's life were born anew. In the chaos, one question loomed larger than the storm outside. Were they safe inside this once hallowed ground, or had they unknowingly opened the door to far greater dangers? The door shuddered, racked by an icy gust that swept inside, drawing the damp air with it. Evelyn's heart thudded in her chest as she squinted into the darkness, her breath quickening in sync with the rising tension. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steadier than she felt. Harold remained silent, his eyes wide and darting, filled with an understanding that clawed at her gut. With a low creak, the figure stepped forward into the weak light illuminating the entrance. It was a man tall, dressed in a long, dark coat that glistened with rain. Shadows played across his face, but there was something familiar in the grim set of his jaw that sent a chill down her spine. "Just one more step," she warned, trying to sound defiant, though her hands trembled at her sides. "You don't want to provoke me." The man chuckled, a hollow sound that dripped with disdain. "You really think you can protect him?" He gestured toward Harold, who staggered back as if he'd been struck. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. He has dragged you back into a world from which you thought you were free." Evelyn felt the walls close in, the air around her electric with the weight of his words. She shot a glance at Harold, his face pale, revelation dawning like a slow-motion car crash. "What have you gotten into now?" she whispered, a wedge of fear splitting her voice. The man stepped closer, easing the tension in his posture, but the menace remained. "I'm just the messenger, sweetheart. Harold here has been digging too deep. Trust funds, hidden accounts, money that shouldn't belong to him," he taunted, his eyes gleaming with malice. Now, those who once saw him as a king wished to see him fall. "What are you saying?" Evelyn pressed, her mind spinning. She could feel the walls of safety shuddering around her. This was no mere trouble. This was a threat, a dirt-laden pit that neither of them could escape unscathed. The trust fund isn't just a pile of cash. It holds secrets. Dangerous secrets. He paused for effect, letting the words sink in. Secrets not only about Harold but about people far worse than him. He is standing at the edge of something dark, and if you stay around, you'll be dragged down too. Harold shook his head, a fine sheen of sweat glimmering on his forehead. You're lying, he gasped, but the denial felt weak, almost hollow under the weight of the accusation. Oh, but think, Harold, the man hissed, how long did you think you could outsmart the people who run this city? They're coming for you, for both of you. You can't hide in this old shack forever. Evelyn's veins turned to ice. The realization settled heavily on her chest. She was trapped, sandwiched between the man she'd once loved and this looming threat. What do we do? She breathed, the urgency in her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. The man smiled, a cruel twist on his lips. Now, that's the question. You could run, but with the storm starting to settle outside, how far do you think you'd get? Or his tone shifted, darkening, you could help Harold and plunge into this mess head first. Your choice. At that moment, a thunderclap rolled over the house, rattling the windows, mirroring the turmoil swirling within her. Thoughts raced through her mind, memories, fears, guilt. She was standing at a precipice, with no clear way out. Evelyn, please, Harold's voice cracked, pleading. Choose, the man said, grinning, his eyes glinting with wicked anticipation. Evelyn's heart raced. Whatever path she decided to take could tear her life apart or protect it. But the question remained, would the truth set her free, or drag her back into darkness? The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest brewing within her. She had to decide quickly, but how could she when doubt twisted itself tighter around her heart? What path would she take? Would she fight for Harold, or leave him to face the storm alone? It was a choice that could redefine everything. Evelyn took a step back, heart racing as she weighed the chilling implications of the man's words. The air crackled around them, thick with danger and uncertainty. Harold's wide eyes reflected a mix of panic and desperation that twisted her insides. What do you want from us? She blurted, trying to gain some control over the spiraling chaos. The figure's smile deepened, revealing a mixture of amusement and satisfaction. I just want you to understand the stakes. You could walk away, leave him to the wolves. Or get involved and face the monsters yourself. Either way, I'll be watching. Harold's spirit crumbled under the weight of the situation. Please, Evelyn, don't listen to him, he stammered, grasping for her hand. We can talk. Find a way out of this. There has to be enough. The man barked, cutting Harold off with a wave of his hand. The authority in his voice made Evelyn flinch. Let's just cut to the chase. You're in deep, Harold. You thought you could play with powerful people and not get burned? Shut up! Evelyn shouted, fear and anger colliding inside her. She couldn't bear to watch Harold fall apart. Just leave us alone. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? The man leaned forward, the shadows dancing on his face, sharpening his features. Tell me, how well do you really know your husband? How well did you know him when you two were together? The question stabbed through the air, turning into a dagger that twisted in Evelyn's heart. She struggled to breathe, her lungs constricted by memories she'd tried to lock away. She remembered the glow of their happy moments, but it all felt shadowed now. What secrets had Harold hidden? Please, Evelyn, Harold said again, his voice low and fractured. I'm not the man he says I am. But she couldn't look away from the man in the coat. What do you know? She challenged, trying to regain ground in this dangerous game. What do you want? The trust fund is just the beginning, he said, a spark igniting his eyes. The board wants heads to roll, and Harold is at the top of their list. You can either stand by and watch, or you can help him make a plan. It's up to you. With each word, a swirling vortex formed inside her. Every gut instinct screamed for her to run, yet something deeper tugged her to stay. Was there a truth buried beneath the chaos? Was Harold innocent, or had he played them all? The winds outside howled, rattling the old windows, echoing her turmoil. She caught a glimpse of the man's eyes. They were fierce, piercing, like a hawk watching its prey. The weight of the decision felt heavier than the storm raging outside. What kind of plan? She finally muttered, each syllable dripping with reluctance. He straightened up, a hint of satisfaction washing over his face. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. But know this, your choice could very well be your undoing. Are you truly prepared to dive into the chaos? Evelyn swallowed hard, fingers trembling as she gripped Harold's arm. The tension stretched taut in the room, the shadows seeming to murmur secrets meant for her ears alone. Make your choice, sweethearts, he continued with a smirk, because trust me, the clock is ticking, and the storm is just beginning. Holding her breath, Evelyn stood at a crossroads, staring into the abyss. Could she step forward into the unknown? Or was it time to sever ties with the man she used to love? The answer slowly approached, clouded by uncertainty and dread. But one thing was clear: whatever decision she made from this point on would set off a chain reaction, and she felt every pulse of that impending explosion deep within her. And as the storm raged, Evelyn knew she could hear the truth whispering just beyond the darkness. Would she listen? Evelyn's heart thundered in her chest as shadows danced around the room, the weight of the man's words heavy in the air. She felt trapped, the walls closing in, and for a brief moment, her mind raced with fantasies of escape. But just as quickly, reality slashed through her fantasies like a knife. Harold needed her. Tell me what to do, she said, her voice a whisper, almost lost amid the howling wind outside. The man chuckled, a low, sinister sound. It's simple, really. You need to find out what Harold has been keeping from you. You already know he has tangled with people from the board. Find out what they want from him. Then we'll formulate a plan. But be cautious. Truth is like a live wire, it shocks, and it can kill. Evelyn's chest tightened. A knot of concern twisted in her stomach as she glanced at Harold, whose face had paled. You can't let them use you against me, Harold, she said, frustration bubbling over. What are they blackmailing you with? His gaze dropped, shame shadowing his features. I thought I could protect you by keeping you away from this. I never wanted you to get involved. Too late for that now, the man interjected, his tone cutting through the air. You both are already in the thick of it. Evelyn's throat felt dry as she considered the implications of the stranger's words. And if I help him? What does that mean for us? Everything, he replied, leaning closer. Secrets untold, debts unpaid. I will offer him a lifeline, but at a cost. Are you ready to pay the price? What price? She demanded, a spark of defiance igniting in her chest. He leaned back, a knowing grin spreading across his face. Trust is the currency in this game. If you want to save him, you must trust him, and that's no small feat. You'll have to dig into his past and face your own demons. Dig into his past? Panic swirled within her. What if I discover something I wish I hadn't? Everything will explode in your face if you don't. The man's voice dropped lower, as if sharing a deadly secret. Someone is watching you, both of you. Time is not on your side. A chill crawled up Evelyn's spine. She remembered the security detail they'd had in the past few weeks, sudden shadows lurking too close for comfort. What do you mean? Harold asked, panic rising in his voice. Who is watching us? The man tilted his head, his eyes glistening with mischief. Amateurs never realize they're pawns until they're deep in the game. You could be leading them straight to your doom without even knowing. Harold's fingers clenched around Evelyn's wrist, desperation making him stronger. Whatever it takes, Evelyn. I can't lose you too. Tell me you'll help me. Evelyn hesitated, her heart a battlefield of loyalties. She had to trust him, or did she? But could she really shake off the doubt that clung to her like smoke? Do we have a choice? She asked, the weight of acceptance sinking her stomach. Your choice, sweethearts, the man said, disrupting the fragile silence. It's all part of the game. Evelyn locked eyes with Harold, and in that fleeting moment, the unspoken words flickered between them: love, regret, fear. But the storm outside roared louder, mirroring the tumult inside. They needed a plan. But as the clouds swirled and the winds howled, Evelyn realized that the horizon held secrets far darker than she could ever anticipate. And it was only the beginning. What truths awaited in the shadows? Would she dare unearth them? Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as she stood frozen, Michael's chilling words echoing in her mind. The gravity of what lay ahead weighed heavily on her, each second stretching painfully as uncertainty loomed. "Let us go, Evelyn," Harold urged, breaking the spell of silence that had ensnared them both. "We need to act fast." She nodded, her heart pounding as they stepped out into the storm. Rain lashed at their skin, frigid and relentless, just like the fear pooling in her gut. The streetlights flickered, struggling against the gloom that enveloped them. It was as if the world outside mirrored the darkness swirling within her. "Where do we even start?" she asked, wiping rain from her eyes. "Someplace that might give us a clue." "The bar where it all started," Harold replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. The dive bar down on Fifth had always been notorious a haven for secrets and half-whispers that spilled like liquor from overfilled glasses. As they hurried to the familiar door, a rush of anxiety surged through Evelyn. She could almost hear the ghosts of the past beckoning her closer. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and murmurs. A few patrons slumped over their drinks, the shadows obscuring their faces. Evelyn's eyes darted around, searching for a hint of familiarity, a sign of something she needed to catch before it slipped away like sand through her fingers. "Let us approach the bartender," Harold suggested, pointing to a surly figure polishing glasses behind the counter. As they made their way through the dim light, the bartender looked up, his expression neutral but scrutinizing. "What can I do for you?" "We need information about someone, Gregory," Harold said, keeping his voice low. "We hear he has been asking around." The bartender's demeanor shifted, a flicker of recognition crossing his eyes. "Gregory? That slimy rat? Wanted by half the city. What business do you have with him?" Evelyn exchanged a glance with Harold, the feeling of unseen eyes running down her spine. "He's connected to someone we both know. He wouldn't want us digging around." The bartender narrowed his eyes, leaning closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Listen, you're treading on dangerous ground. He's in deep with the board. If he finds out you're looking into him, I'm not afraid of him," Evelyn snapped, the fire in her voice surprising even herself. "I'm not afraid of what I might find." The bartender grunted, a smirk creeping across his lips. "You should be." He paused, surveyed the room, then leaned back. "All right, I've seen him around. Last I heard, he was meeting someone tonight, some big shot from the board. But it's not a place for amateurs." "Where?" Harold pressed. "Northside warehouse, by the docks. Midnight." Evelyn's heart raced. This could be the lead they needed, the key to unlocking the mystery of Harold's troubles. But as they turned to leave, the sound of glass shattering echoed through the bar, silencing the chatter. Eyes turned, and she abruptly felt the telltale prickle of danger. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a figure darting toward the back exit, the unmistakable silhouette of a man, his hood drawn tight against the rain. "Harold, she started, but before she could finish, a gunshot rang out, ricocheting off the bar's rusty decor. "Run!" Harold shouted, pulling her close as chaos erupted. They dove for cover, hearts pounding in sync. Everyone scrambled, the scent of fear sharp in the air, but Evelyn's mind was racing with thoughts of Harold's past, every secret he had, every connection that had led them here. Was Gregory's past worth unraveling? Or was the truth more dangerous than she could handle? As the gunmen rushed out, she knew they couldn't just run forever. They were in the middle of a storm, with dark clouds closing in fast. What awaited them at the warehouse? Evelyn's breathing quickened. They had to get to the docks now. What hidden truths lay waiting in the shadows, and would they still emerge whole on the other side? The blast of that shot lingered in Evelyn's ears, a deafening echo asserting the reality of their peril. The bar erupted into chaos, and she felt Harold's grip firm against her wrist, pulling her away from the shattered glass and frightened patrons. Anger flooded through her, raw and potent. Who was this gunman, and what game were they playing? "Keep low!" Harold barked, steering her toward a side exit. They squeezed past a couple of frightened souls huddled in a corner, their faces pale with shock. As they ducked beneath a table, Evelyn's mind spun. Gregory, the meeting, the docks, this wasn't just random. The pressure was mounting, pushing against her resolve as they crawled deeper into the fray of pulling shadows. Her chest felt tight, a suffocating reminder of what was at stake. "Do you think he saw us?" she whispered, fear lacing her voice. "Doesn't he matter," Harold replied, a grim determination set in his features. "If Gregory's involved, we have to move. Now." They slipped through the narrow passage leading outside, the storm battering them once they emerged. Rain plastered their clothes against their skin, cold and invasive, but it cleared her mind. The north side warehouse loomed in the distance like a specter waiting to spring its trap. "Do you have a plan?" Evelyn asked, voice barely audible over the wind. "I know what you're thinking, and it's too dangerous," Harold lit into her, eyes fierce. He had that look, that steely resolve she had admired before but now filled her with dread. "We can't just charge in." Evelyn shook her head. "Harold, we don't have time for debate. If Gregory is meeting someone high up, it's because this goes deeper than we imagined. We could be sitting on the edge of something big, or it could blow up in our faces." Harold frowned. "We'll be walking into a massacre." Her patience frayed. "I'd rather face the truth than cower in fear. You know what they've done. Your past needs to come to light. We can't let another person fall victim." Harold hesitated, caught in the tension of her insistence and his caution. Evelyn's heart raced, electricity sparking between them. She saw his expression waver, the internal struggle battling against the creeping shadows of potential doom. Finally, his resolve crumbled, if only slightly. "All right, but we stick to the plan. We find evidence, we don't confront." Evelyn's heart warmed with determination. "Let us go." They sprinted toward the warehouse, dodging puddles and debris, each step feeling like it brought them closer to salvation or their graves. As they neared the entrance, the heavy metal doors stood ajar, half open, a gaping mouth revealing nothing but darkness inside. Evelyn scanned the area. No guards. No lurking shadows. "It's too quiet," she murmured, uneasiness hunting her. "Maybe they're too busy with their dirty deal," Harold replied, eyes jumping between the entrance and the storm beyond. Steeling herself, Evelyn stepped inside, the air heavy with the scent of rust and damp timber. They moved cautiously, their footsteps swallowed by the oppressive silence. The dim light strained against the darkness ahead, casting wild shadows that danced across the walls. "Wait," Earl murmured, gripping her arm as a sound caught his ear. A murmur, hushed but urgent. Someone was inside. They pressed against the wall, straining to hear through the rain-soaked timbers that guarded their approach. The words drifted through the air, unfamiliar yet carrying a chilling weight, a negotiation sprinkled with threats. Evelyn tensed, her heart thundering against her chest as she edged closer, desperate to catch every word. "I don't care what it takes," a new voice surged, male and commanding. "Make sure she doesn't find out, not yet." What did that mean? Who was she? Evelyn felt the raw urgency of time slipping through their fingers. This was it. The tip of the iceberg. But the deeper they went, the darker it became. Then, a sudden crash echoed from the far end of the warehouse. The unmistakable sounds of footsteps, harsh and deliberate, moving toward them. "Hide!" Harold hissed, and before she could react they found themselves racing deeper into the shadows, heartbeats synchronized in a frantic rhythm, burdened by the weight of truth and fear. And then, Evelyn felt it, a hand gripping her shoulder, firm and relentless. Too late for hiding, the voice snarled, sending icy dread through her veins as the world narrowed into peril. What fate awaited them in the darkness? And would the secrets buried within the warehouse be their undoing? Evelyn's heart stopped. The grip on her shoulder tightened, and she turned, eyes wide with terror. The dim light fell upon a face she didn't recognize, shadowy and menacing. "Who are you?" she gasped, trying to break free, but his hold only strengthened. "Not an answer you need to know," the man growled. "What would your dear Harold say if he knew you were so reckless?" Harold surged forward. "Let her go!" he shouted, a fire igniting in his eyes. "You don't want any part of this. Back off." The man laughed, a low, gravelly sound that sent shivers up Evelyn's spine. "You think you can protect her? From me?" He pointed a finger toward the entrance. "You've got half the city looking for you. It's cute, really." Panic rose as Evelyn's mind raced. They were running out of time. This was no longer about stolen secrets. It was about survival. She had to outsmart this guy or they might not make it out alive. Harold, she choked, her voice wavering, we need a way out. Now. The man's gaze flicked towards the entrance, a knowing smirk on his lips. You're not going anywhere. Not until I get what I want. He released her shoulder but took a step back, and the dark intent behind his eyes made the hairs on her neck stand on end. What do you want? Harold demanded, standing his ground between her and the threat. You're not getting anything from us. Seems we're not in a position to negotiate, the man sneered. But perhaps I can be persuaded. He took another step forward, eyes narrowing. How about a certain little secret your friend here is carrying? The one that could ruin Gregory? Evelyn's breath hitched. The pieces were starting to connect in her mind. What do you know? She pressed, desperately trying to gauge the man's motives. Let us just say I've got my ears to the ground, he said. And I'm not interested in playing this game unless it's on my terms. A gunshot rang out from the warehouse entrance, and the atmosphere shifted like lightning. The man spun around, a curse escaping his lips. Damn it! I thought I told you to hold the perimeter. Evelyn wasted no time. Now! She hissed to Harold, urgency propelling her forward. They bolted in the opposite direction, hearts pounding in sync, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they darted away, they heard footsteps and shouting behind them. A second shot echoed, much closer this time. The world had turned chaotic, and they were the prey. They ducked behind a stack of crates and pressed against their rough surface, panting heavily. Evelyn glanced sideways at Harold, whose face was pale, but determination burned in his eyes. We can't stay here. We need to move. I know where they might not expect us to go, he replied, scanning the shadowy corners and pathways. Where? The old shipping office. If we can get there, we might just find something we can use. Something to bargain with. Evelyn nodded, her resolve hardening. Let us do it. They crept into the darkness just as more shouts erupted from the direction they had fled, chaos trailing behind them. The office loomed ahead, its silhouette barely visible against the stormy backdrop. With every step, an overwhelming sense of dread settled in her stomach. What if they were too late? What if Gregory's operation was already imploding, and they had just walked into the crossfire? Suddenly, a flash of movement caught her eye. Two figures emerged from the shadows, one taller and bulkier, while the other shifted nervously at his side. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Harold? She whispered, panic creeping back in. What if they got back up? We have to be quick. We might not get another chance. Harold took a cautious step, drawing her behind him, guarding her from view. The men were discussing something urgent, secretive. In the midst of their exchange, one man pulled out a small device, flicking it open to reveal a series of numbers. Evelyn squinted, trying to make sense of it. If they could just get closer. Do you see that? She murmured, staring wide-eyed at the device. Then, without warning, the tall man looked up, his gaze pinning right where they hid. Did you hear that? He barked, and tension thickened the air as Evelyn felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Run! Harold whispered, and without hesitation, they turned and sprinted toward the shadows, the men's footsteps echoing ominously behind them. What secrets were they about to stumble into, and would it force them to make a choice that could change everything? Evelyn sprinted through the narrow alley, every breath sharp and tinged with panic. The clamor of footsteps behind them drove her faster, urgency propelling her like a dart. She barely registered Harold's presence beside her, his steady footfalls matching her own, heart hammering in her chest. Left! He shouted suddenly, veering into a poorly lit side street that funneled between crumbling buildings. She followed, skidding to a halt at the entrance of the alley, their shadows swallowed by darkness. We can't stop here, she gasped. But Harold was already pulling her behind an old dumpster, the stench of garbage filling her nostrils. They pressed against the cold metal, hearts racing in sync with the sharp echoes of approaching footsteps. Listen, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. We need to stay quiet and wait for them to pass. Evelyn nodded, her pulse pounding in her ears. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. The weight of the journalist's secret sat like a stone in her gut, the revelation that could shatter lives, including her own. The truth about Gregory was a double-edged sword, and as much as she craved safety, she feared the consequences of it being discovered. The footsteps drew closer, voices threading through the still night. "Split up," one man urged, the same heavy voice from before the shadowy threat they had just escaped. "We'll find them. They can't have gone far." Evelyn felt her breath hitch, panic sparking again. "They're looking for us," she whispered, eyes wide with dread. "They won't find us if we stay quiet." Harold's eyes were fierce, cutting through the anxiety like a beacon. "We'll need to make it to the docks. They'll never expect us there." Just then, laughter erupted from behind them, followed by a loud thud. A third man had joined, and the sound of someone slamming an object against the pavement gave Evelyn a jolt. She leaned closer to Harold, praying they remained hidden. "Did you see the way he jumped when he heard the gunfire?" The newcomer jeered. "Looks like our little mouse scared him half to death." Evelyn's heart sank. They were toying with them like cats with a cornered mouse. "Let us check that storage yard," the first man suggested. "They might be hiding in there." "We'll flush them out." "No, we stick to the perimeter. More chance of catching them in the open," the bulky man replied, contempt dripping from his tone. "Who needs the perimeter when we can smoke them out, huh?" This time, the laughter sent horrified chills up her spine. "Cover me. I'm going in," the bulky man commanded, moving deeper into the shadows. Evelyn's thoughts raced. They needed an escape plan, and fast. No more hiding. No more waiting. This new threat might just be the catalyst they needed to turn the tables. "Harold," she began, heart pounding. "What if we ambush them? We might have a shot." "No. It's too dangerous." "They're armed," he said, but she could see the wheels turning in his mind. "There are two of them, one goes in, the other keeps watch," she pressed, searching his face for any flicker of agreement. "We can't let them find us. If we wait any longer, it'll be too late." He hesitated, gnawing on his knuckles, and in that moment, uncertainty flickered like a candle in the dark. "All right," he finally said, his voice raw and taut. "We'll create a diversion. You follow my lead." Before Evelyn could respond, Harold sprang from their cover, launching a scrap of metal against a wall farther down the alley. The sound echoed like a gunshot, a deliberate decoy. "What was that?" the bulky man shouted, misinterpreting the direction. "Let us check it out." The other one shouted back, and they both rushed towards the sound. Evelyn's heart raced, adrenaline pooling in her veins. "Now!" she hissed, and they slipped into the shadow of the storage yard, hiding behind a stack of pallets. As they paused to catch their breath, the night air thick with tension, Evelyn's mind spun. They had fired the first shot, now it was time to seize the advantage, but would this gamble save them, or seal their fate? Suddenly, a phone buzzed nearby, vibrating with an incoming call. The bulky man cursed, visibly frustrated. "Did you grab the tracker?" he barked, hastily pulling out his phone, anxiety marking his face. Evelyn exchanged a glance with Harold, realization dawning heavy between them. It was their chance. They needed to get that tracker. Whatever it could reveal could change the game. "Let us move," she whispered, determination igniting anew within. They emerged from their hiding place, edging closer, hearts pounding with a fear they couldn't ignore. But as they approached, the glint of metal caught Harold's eye, and uncertainty knocked at the door of their resolve. Would daring to seize this opportunity bring them closer to freedom, or would it plunge them deeper into the nightmare? Evelyn felt the weight of the moment. The stakes had just risen, and she could feel the storm gathering around them. "Ready?" Harold asked, his voice almost lost in the backdrop of chaos. "Always," she whispered back, and as they stepped into the unknown, they had one relentless question on their minds. Would the truth save them or destroy them? But outside, the clock was ticking, and their every move was being watched. The dim light flickered overhead as Evelyn and Harold faced the darkness that loomed ahead. Their breaths came quick, hearts pounding like thunder in their chests. The urgency to act enveloped them, but so did the weight of doubt. In their pursuit of truth, had they ventured too far into the shadows? "Stay close," Harold murmured, stepping cautiously towards the advancing figures, the fear gnawing at the edges of his resolve. They took cover behind a stack of crates, hands slick with rain, their bodies glued to the crumbling wood as a wave of voices came closer. The two men from before spoke in hushed tones. Their looming threat ignited a fire in Evelyn. Now, more than ever, they needed to dismantle the lies hiding in the darkness. "Harold," she whispered, "we can't let them slip away. We need to get that tracker. Maybe it will lead us to the truth." Harold glanced at her, uncertainty dancing in his expression, yet there was a flicker of determination behind his eyes. "You sure about this? Do we really have a choice?" she replied, a steely edge in her voice. "The truth doesn't wait around. If we don't act, this ends right here." Just then, laughter erupted from the shadows. "You think they can hide forever? How naive!" Without caution, the two men ambled closer, their backs now facing Evelyn and Harold. It was now or never. "Now!" Harold hissed, and in synchronized urgency, they sprang into action. With a burst of adrenaline, they leaped into the dim light, pushing the men off balance. "What the?" one growled. "Grab the tracker," Evelyn shouted, her hands grasping for the device before it fell into the mud. In the chaos, shouts ricocheted like bullets. "Get off me, you fool!" There was a scramble, fists flew, and chaos erupted. Evelyn seized the moment to snatch the bulky device, her heart hammering with the thrill of success. Harold wrestled one of the men to the ground. "We just need to get away," he urged, anger igniting his voice. Evelyn didn't wait for the chaos to settle. She turned, eyes scanning for an exit. The office. Together, they sprinted toward the old shipping office, the rain lashing against their skin, blurring their vision but not their determination. Each step drove them further into the heart of peril, every echo around them blaring danger as they burst through the door, slamming it shut behind them. Inside, the air felt electric, filled with the unmistakable crackle of secrets. "What do we do now?" Harold panted, glancing around frantically, eyes wild with desperation. Evelyn held the tracker tightly, the sharp thrill of hope surging through her veins. "We can find out who they're working with, what they're after. Or it can bring them right back to us," Harold warned, pushing strands of wet hair from his face. Resistance flickered in her heart, but she couldn't allow fear to paralyze her. "We need to expose them. For your sake and for the sake of everyone they've hurt." As adrenaline coursed through her, she activated the device. Numbers whirred to life, a frantic stream of data lighting up in her hands. "It's tracking multiple signals. Who are they connected to?" Evelyn burned with a need for answers that could pull them both from the darkness. Suddenly, the door rattled violently. "You can't hide forever," snarled the voice of the man they had confronted. "Let us in, or face the consequences." Evelyn's pulse quickened, the noise slashing through their quiet sanctuary. "Harold, quick! We have to move," she urged, looking for a way through the panic. "Over here." He pointed toward a broken window, rain lashing against it like desperate fingers clawing their way in. As they climbed through, fear coiled tighter within her. Facing the storm outside had never been more daunting. But this was it. No going back now. They were on a path to the truth, regardless of where it led them. They emerged outside, the rain masking their escape, cold water mingling with rising hope. "Do you trust me?" Harold shouted above the roar of the storm, urgency painting his words. Evelyn met his gaze. His vulnerability made her heart swell. "I do." "Together. Then? Let us finish this." Determination ignited between them as they raced forward, each heartbeat in sync with theirs, conscious of the battle still ahead. Across the rain-soaked ground lay their future, uncertain, dark, and thrillingly alive. The dangers lingering in the shadows would not deter them. The truth awaited in the chaos, a guiding light amid the storm, urging them onward. In that moment, as raindrops fell like tears from the sky, Evelyn and Harold embraced the journey ahead, knowing that together they could face the wrath of the storm. Though threats loomed behind them, they carried the flicker of hope that sparked the beginning of their most daring quest. They wouldn't just survive. They would unravel the sinister web of deceit that had ensnared their lives once and for all. And as they disappeared into the night, a new dawn awaited just past the horizon, one they would carve out together. Don't you want to know what comes next? You need to subscribe now and be the first to see the next thrilling twists in this saga. Smash that like button to help fuel the algorithm fire. We can't do this without your support. Flood the comments section with your theories. What do you think awaits Evelyn and Harold? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to catch this wild ride.